As far as like the hierarchy of values and the cost benefit analysis, those are two tools where I actually remember the very first time I saw them in meetings.
Yeah.
The hierarchy of values, I think it was Mickler's meeting. It was a lunchtime meeting. I was at work and I jumped in and he went through it. And it was that aha moment that you were talking about, like I was just like blown away. And then I noticed that in my meetings now when I go through it with people and they get those moments. And it's just so heartwarming to see that. I love it. And the cost benefit analysis was a Smart Recovery online meeting run by Kibbs, and it was on nicotine, which was one of my issues as
Right.
well. And
Yeah.
I think like 3 days later, after he went through that, I couldn't justify doing it anymore because like the information was like right in front of me, laid out. Like, Pam, look what you're doing. This is stupid. So,
Yeah.
like 3 days later, I stopped all nicotine, vaping, smoking, nothing, and it was just I don't know. Smarts really changed my life. I can't speak highly enough about it. I just
Yeah.
can't. And yeah, so
I think when
that's
you
all I have
find
to
that
add.
thing that clicks, right? When you find
Mm-hmm.
that like Amit's talking about the community that works for you, the tools that work for you, the thought process, the philosophy behind it all. The thing I loved about Smart when I got connected with it was the fact that this gives me concrete tools to actually use, right?
Especially like on your own too.
Yeah.
You didn't have to get a sponsor and like make that connection if you were too nervous, like I would have been to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
at the time. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, sorry, can I just say something
yeah, go for it.
to that? It's I think that when we talk about the building and maintaining, it's two different things, right? Like why do people end up at a meeting and then why do they keep coming back?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And for me, we talk about this in your group, Stephen, when it talks about reinforcement,
yeah,
right? And first of all, let me say about our tools, because you said something about the concrete. I I I I love our tools because they are somewhat malleable. They are fluid in a sense that I've heard people say that they've done a hierarchy of values and then they start explaining it. It's a way that I've never seen it done. And
yeah,
I'm not gonna
100%.
I'm not
Totally
gonna
get
go,
that.
well, you did it wrong. It's like, well, if that's
Yeah,
working
no.
for you, man, so even the things that I'm sharing on how I've done it, it's other people that told me they did that. I'm like, I'm taking that. That's a new one, a way I'm gonna do it. Right. But when I do think of reinforcement, I think a lot of us ended up here because of punishment, right?
Mm,
Is punishment sustainable though long term?
no.
No, not in my experience. So we're trying to create that positive form of reinforcement by what you're saying when it's those little wins where it's like, I'm going to recognize that, what, I had 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep last night. Like that is, I have not had that in years. Or, you know what, I'm driving behind the wheel right now and I'm not worried. Like I remember that was one thing I used to get. I used to get super anxious and hyper road rage and stuff. Not
Dude, that
necessarily
stuck around that like stuck around with me for years, eh? Like I
really.
would I would be driving my car years after I'd sober up and there'd be a cop pull up behind me and I'd get really nervous. I'd get really anxious, worried about like, oh shit, like what the and I'd start going through it in my mind and be like, the fuck, dude, you
There's
don't have to
nothing to be
worry.
worried about.
Yeah, there's nothing to be worried about.
And now I don't even get worried anymore. But it
Yeah,
was,
no, not anymore, no.
if anyone's known me for over 5 years, they've heard me talk about how anxious I used to get behind the wheel of my car.
Yeah,
And I don't anymore. And yeah, so it is that positive reinforcement that I think creates that maintenance. When we're talking about the maintaining the motivation,
yeah.
when people say to me, it's kind of scary to be honest, when they go, I just don't want to end up in jail, or I'm doing this for my wife, or I don't want to lose my kids. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be the thing that does it. Like, not in my experience, at least. It's all those things can happen and you'll still keep drinking. It's got to be something that it's like, well, what do you want? Like, not to get too philosophical, but that whole he with the why can bear any how. Do you have a why? Right? Like
Yeah,
for me, having that why was so important. And it's like having a purpose, a reason,
yeah,
right? To want to be who you, and once again, back to the hierarchy of values. Once I realized I had that, I am a good person because I value honesty. I value integrity, right? I value reliability. These are great things that I genuinely want to be,
yeah,
right? So then it's like, okay, so I want to be a person that can be of value. And I'm no value to anyone when I'm being that person,
yeah.
right? But then when it's selfish Aaron, if you will, entitled Aaron pops into the equation, and it's like, yeah, but is this helpful to others?
There's a part of you that's entitled.
Believe it or not. Believe it or not, Stephen, it does exist.